Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about the Greek tragedy of Dell and Asus. It's a story about outsourcing, pleasing Wall Street, and building capabilities. This story comes from a book called How Will You Measure Your Life by the late Clayton M. Christensen. The top 5 companies in the personal computing industry are Lenovo, HP, Dell, Apple, and Asus. But this top 5 looked slightly different in the 90s, with Compaq, IBM, Dell, HP, and NEC as the top 5. But let's take a look at Dell and Asus and what makes their story a Greek tragedy. So Dell was started by a young student at the University of Texas named Michael Dell. He started PCs Limited with $1,000 and had a game-changing vision for how technology should be designed, manufactured, and sold. He left his dorm room at the end of his first year to devote all of his time to the growing business. In 1988, the company was exploding with growth and actually went international. By 2001, the company was one of the largest computer companies in the world, and today they're still known as one of the top computer companies. Dell can contribute its success to 3 main reasons, particularly in the 90s and early 2000s. One, they were disruptive. They sold low-cost, entry-level computers via mail and the web, and eventually they started selling higher and higher-end products. 2, they employed mass customization through its modularity. A customer could customize their computer and it would be created and put together and shipped within 48 hours. So if you wanted a better processor or more storage or just different components, they would have it put together and shipped within 48 hours. And lastly, Dell focused on being financially savvy by squeezing every last dollar of sales out of their assets. And we're going to talk about this more later. So the main reason why Dell could achieve this success and this growth was because of a Taiwanese company called Asus. Started in 1989, Asus quickly began to become a popular and successful computer component manufacturer, mainly focusing on motherboards. So they didn't make computers, but they made the stuff that goes inside computers. Through the early and mid-90s, deals with Intel led them to become the world's leading motherboard manufacturer. In 1997, the company launched their first notebook and enjoyed continued success through the 90s, and they actually still enjoy continued success today. Dell started manufacturing computers, but quickly found that they could outsource certain parts of their business. For example, instead of making certain components of the computer, like little circuits, they could buy a higher quality product and at a cheaper price from a different company. This is how Dell and Asus started working with each other. This outsourcing was very attractive to Dell because it made their financials look better. On Wall Street, analysts measure a variety of metrics and ratios, and a set of important ratios that are widely used seek to examine how well a company uses its capital or its money and its resources. And a common one is called RONA, or the return on net assets. RONA is calculated by dividing a company's income by their net assets. So the more income you have, the higher that's going to be. Or conversely, the lower assets you have, the higher it's going to be. And a higher RONA means that the company is doing a better job of converting its assets into dollars. So a high RONA means that our assets, our plant, our machinery, everything else, we are earning more money off of those assets versus a lower RONA, which means we have these assets, but we're not as good as utilizing or leveraging these assets that we have. So if you're an analyst or someone looking to invest in your company, if you have a high RONA ratio, that's going to make you more attractive. So there are 2 ways that you can increase RONA, like what I've said. You can increase sales on the income statement, so that's your numerator, but this can be difficult to do. Or 2, you can reduce the assets on the balance sheet. So if you can outsource something and sell off those assets, or don't even have to produce those assets or develop those assets, that will be able to help you develop and increase your RONA. So by outsourcing some of the required processes to other companies, it could keep its same income level but reduce their asset level. This would increase the RONA ratio, making Dell look like a better company on financials and those metrics and ratios. Fast forward after some time, and Asus came to Dell and essentially said, hey, you enjoy our components, why don't we make your motherboards as well? This is one of our competencies, so Asus is really good at making motherboards. You don't have to make motherboards. We will do it for you. We can sell our product, you can get the product you need, and your ratios will improve. So it's a win-win. So by outsourcing the motherboard production, Dell could essentially erase a large chunk of their assets and make RONA increase because they'd still be able to put all their computers together, but they would be able to do it with lower asset base and they'd be able to increase that RONA ratio. This pattern of outsourcing from Dell to Asus kept going. Asus would make the motherboard, then they would assemble the product, and next they would outsource the supply chain and even design the computers. So every step of the value chain, or every step from the making of the computers to actually selling the computers, Dell started to hand over to Asus. And Asus is basically doing everything from making the product, designing the product, assembling the product, shipping and delivering the product. And all that would happen is the computer would be made basically in an Asus warehouse, but they'd slap a Dell logo on it and ship it out the door. So customers were buying a Dell product, but it was basically made by Asus. And because Dell was still making large amounts of money on their very low assets, their RONA was impressive and was very, very attractive. But it came at a cost, and this is where the Greek tragedy comes into it. In 2005, Asus launched its own brand of computers. They learned how to design, manufacture, assemble, and deliver these computers because of their partnership with Dell. Dell essentially funded this branch of the Asus business and created their own competitor. So Dell said, hey, Asus, we want you to build this, we want you to design this, we want you to put this together. And Asus learned all of these things and developed these processes and capabilities, and eventually they could just go on their own. They didn't need Dell anymore because they knew how to do everything. Because of this, Dell did not have much of the manufacturing capabilities and heavily relied on Asus. Even though their financial metrics looked amazing, they were slowly whittling away the foundation of their business. So in any business, it is important to balance outsourcing with insourcing. And another word for insourcing is vertical integration. So if you're making decisions on outsourcing a process or maybe a specific component, how will it impact your business today? How will it impact it a year from now? How will it impact it 10 years from now? It may improve your balance sheet, but are you going to be left in the dust? So you need to ask the questions of, should you build these capabilities or should you outsource them? Dell found that they had great financial success immediately, but it ended up with long-term negative consequences. So if we look at the top market share, Dell is still one of the top competitors, but Asus has came in and they've started to take some of the market share from Dell. So Dell essentially created their own competitor. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and leave a comment. And as always, have a great day and happy learning.